flood. So you have to do something. 17 million people, so not inconsequential. 9 million of those people live at or below sea level. So they feel pretty safe there too. It's important to sort of understand that they don't feel at risk. They know the Dutch government is working for them to keep them safe. About 70% of Dutch GDP is produced in those low-lying areas. That's an important example for folks in the California Bay Delta, which is also below sea level, folks in Louisiana, and folks along certain places in the United States, which is at or below sea level. You can live in these places safely if you mitigate the risk properly. One of the things that's a very intricate water management system, one of the things that's threatening the Netherlands right now is climate change. The climate is changing. There are these longer term impacts. They're expecting higher storm surges. They're expecting wetter weather in the winter, heavier river discharges. So when the snow melts in the Alps, it has to get out to the North Sea through the Netherlands. It is subsiding, which increases your risk. And in the last, there's a Dutch spelling there. No, good, I spelled drought right. In the last 10 years, there have been 3 years of periodic drought in the wet Netherlands. And if you look at the IPCC reports, they're anticipating more drier weather in the Netherlands. The last levee failure in the Netherlands occurred during a drought because the clay-capped levees desiccated, and the little bit of pressure on the levee then caused the levee to shift. And now the whole area in a dry period was under higher flood risk. So climate change is challenging in the Netherlands. Sea level rise, it's manageable. 1 to 2 feet, 1 to 2.5 feet between now and 2100. This is much lower than a lot of places on the East Coast, what the projections for the East Coast. So the Dutch have an easier problem to solve in some ways. And I'm here to tell you that water management is not only a matter of national survival, it's an opportunity. I'm going to show you this, an opportunity to live more closely with water and to benefit from all the things that come by living. I mean, Boston is along the water, New York's along the water, San Francisco's along the water for a reason. And you can deal with these things. So you take advantage of these opportunities. Just a little slide there showing more what the Netherlands look like underwater. Here's just a progression of images looking from south to north. The gray areas are built-up areas. The green areas farming or recreational areas. And here the deep blue is what would happen at the deepest levels. That's water. So as you would increase the water levels, or if you have a flood and it would start to flow through the country at 15 feet or 16 feet below sea level, this is what would flood at 12 feet or 4 meters. There you go. Go back here. Look up to the top here. Whoops, sorry. Okay, I can't. Anyway, at the top here, you'll watch this whole polar disappear. That's at 3 levels, or 3 meters below sea level, 2 meters below sea level, 1 meter below sea level. So the Netherlands, as we know it, has stopped to exist. And this is mean sea level right now. Sea level rise of 1 meter is going to do that to the Netherlands without any changes. So you have a tremendous amount of risk here. The Dutch do have to move to Germany if they don't deal with this. And the Netherlands has had a history of floods, 1 major flood every 100 years on average over the last since about 1200. The images are on the right-hand side of the last major flood in 1953. 1,800 people died. 1,800 people died, and the Netherlands was just recovering from World War II. Pretty poor country, and major impact. The Dutch in the 1900s decided they needed to shorten the coastline. Up on the top, you'll see the open sea arm, which was the old IJssel sea arm, the Southern Sea, as they call it. It was open to North Sea storm surge, North Sea currents and waves. In 1916, a major flood destroyed Amsterdam, parts of Amsterdam, and other part of the places around that sea arm, so they closed it off. And in fact, with the major enclosure dike, this enclosure dike is right now at the end of its useful life, and they're deciding now what to do with it. But what they did, in fact, was increase the protection by shortening the coastline. So as opposed to having 300 kilometers of something to protect, now they have 45. Same thing after the 53 flood, a major set of barriers and locks and structures to close off the Delta Sea arms. The one image on the bottom left or the bottom right is the Eastern barrier put in place in 1986. And the other is the Maasland barrier in Rotterdam, put in place in 1997. This is the major thing that's protecting the Dutch Delta from coastal storm surge, and the entire amount of landscape they have to protect now was shortened from 750 kilometers to 50 kilometers. So a lot of efforts going on here. Strong coastal spine. You have to keep your systems open, but you need to have the protection. And this is a 40-year-long project. It's not done simply, not done without design and not done without some redesign, because the barrier here with the white pillars going up, that was designed to be a closed system. Environmental movement sort of took off in the Netherlands in the early 1970s, as it did here. They realized they're going to destroy the entire delta ecosystem, so they redesigned the barrier to make it open, and it doubled its cost. Not something you do easily, but it had to be done. In fact, that barrier has paid for itself many times over, because it closes once every, on average, once every 2 years. So it's doing something. Very high flood protection standards, a never-again mentality, certainly post-1953. They have a risk assessment model. They assess their levees every 6 years. Every piece of the flood protection infrastructure is assessed every 6 years. A report goes up to Parliament, and the Parliament is mandated to provide the funding to repair the deficiencies in the system comparing to the mandated legal standards. And that's a crucial thing. There's not a decision if the money is going to be released. The money has to be funded in the next budget cycle or next 2 budget cycles. And cost-benefit analysis done for every piece of infrastructure, and they've just updated that model, the cost-benefit analysis model, and it won the Franz Edelman Award, major, very prestigious award last year. And I'll tell you a little bit about that when I get to the Delta Commission. One thing that we need to make clear here, the Netherlands has an easier problem to solve than folks along the U.S. Gulf Coast have. A 1 in 10,000 year storm in the Netherlands, that's the highest level protection you have, 1 in 10,000 year types of storm protection against, is probably equal to a 1 in 500 year storm along the East Coast. So 1 in 10,000 shouldn't scare you. It's doable in the US too. After all this build out, the Dutch thought they're very safe, but really they have ongoing problems. You have subsidence, which is ongoing. Some of it's geological uptilt in the eastern part of the country, so that's forcing the western part of the country to subside more. You have mining and natural gas mining and salt mining up in the north, which is also causing some subsidence. And you have the peat oxidation in the most densely part of the Netherlands. So you have an ongoing problem which requires this very intricate water supply drainage. You have a summer system where you're trying to put the water back into the system, so you keep the groundwater levels high so you don't subside as quickly, but you have to be able to pump it out in the winter quickly. So you have this very intricate system, and the pumps and the water boards manage the lever to manage the water levels throughout the Dutch landscape to a 1 centimeter area. So when a storm's coming, they pump it down. When they know wet weather or dry weather's coming, they keep water levels higher in the polders. Very intricate. And now sea level rise and climate change, they're anticipating 20 centimeters to 85 centimeters over the next 100 years. More extreme storms, so more dangerous weather. Increased erosion, those storms are going to bring higher wave action, is going to wear down that dune or the foreshore. Increased river discharges coming from Germany and France and Belgium. More intense rainfall. They don't expect more, or overall maybe 10% more rainfall on an annual basis, but they're anticipating the rainfall to come in shorter periods. So more discharge coming into the rivers and into the landscape. Periods of drought. So now when you have a drought situation, the rivers dry up, and you have a saltwater wedge pushing into the Dutch Delta, which is a very fertile area, destroying the fisheries, but also destroying all the farmland who's getting their water, the fresh water to irrigate. So you have a tremendous economic impact here. Salt intrusion, subsidence ongoing, this intricate system, and now you have to live there too. So this is a challenge. But the Dutch tell you they're going up to it. They have changed their entire flood protection planning approach since Katrina. Katrina had a major impact upon the Netherlands, and I'll talk about that. Robust protection is crucial. They are not going to give up their major river levees. They're not going to give up their coastal protection. You have to protect the place, and you have to make the investments in there. But I'm going to talk more about these, the smart land use planning and living with water concept that has informed the Dutch approach over the last 20 years. It's now written into Dutch law. And this is the major impact from Katrina. The Dutch are now thinking about how do you evacuate and what do you do after disaster occurs. Because between 1955 and 1995, the Dutch did not think that their infrastructure would fail. They were convinced that it was robust and something bad would not happen. And now Katrina has caused that mentality to think they need to learn from the US. So the Dutch are looking at what's going on here. This is, we talk about 1 in 100-year storms in the United States. This is a river flood in the Netherlands. This is 1993. This is a 1 in 300-year flood. 2 years later, 1995, the same flood occurred. So these probabilities are esoteric to some of us, but you had 2 300-year storms in a 3-year period. That shouldn't be possible, but it happened, and it caused the implementation of something called the Room for the River program. 35 projects looking to create more space along the rivers so that you could store water so the areas behind the levees don't flood. And I'm going to talk about a couple of those. This is a polder in the central part of the country. You see the delta on the left-hand side, and upstream you see two cities, Gorinchem and Dordrecht. Each city has 150,000 people in it, so not inconsequential. The river levels are projected to go higher and higher, which is going to endanger those cities. So they had to give back this polder, which was reclaimed in the 1700s. They have to give it back to nature. But you can't kick the farmers off without having a discussion. How do you do this? And how do you maintain, there's a national park down below this, how do you maintain that area for all the recreation and cultural values? They put landscape architects in charge of these projects. Most of these are Room for the River projects. And they have a design standard. They're trying to reduce the water level by about a foot. Part of the magical part of this program, and this is how you get sentiment and buy-in from the public, is you have to improve the spatial quality of the area. So it's not just infrastructure to reduce flood risk, it's to improve the spatial quality of the area. It's what Garrett talked about. Find out what the communities want in their projects and engage them so they can help. And they did these designs, and they were supposed to get a 30-centimeter drop or 1-foot drop of water level in the river design discharge. And in fact, by doing this project, they got almost triple that. And it's very good, very successful. All they're doing is they're lowering the river level, the river levee up there, and at certain heights of water level in the river, it's just going to flow through this polder. They've had to move 150 houses and about 400 people out of here, or help them move. Land expropriation is not easy in the Netherlands. It's not any easier there than here. You have to do it. They did it. And here's what's going to happen. These are this is a 1 in 1 year situation. It's done at the bottom. This is when the water level is in the river is at 2 meters above where it should be. So I think this is about a 1 in 10 year situation. Sorry, this is a 1 in 5 year situation, and this is a 1 in 25 year situation. So you are going to purposely flood this area to protect people elsewhere. Here's another program. You can see the river coming in, sort of ag land. And that city there is called Zutphen, and that is at major flood risk. It's in the eastern part of the country. And now you're going to see the current situation, and you'll see an animation with the levee setback and what's going to happen under normal sort of springtime situations. And a 1 in 10 or a 1 in 20 year situation is going to do this. And they're storing water there so you don't get it in the delta and cause major flooding. This project is almost completed. Here's another project which is really cool. The city of Nijmegen sits there in the bottom. I wish I had a pointer here. I don't have a pointer, sorry. Hold on.